Good day, everyone. This video will guide you on how to get started with the ICL Smart Recon solution. So please follow along. Okay, firstly, you would want to sign up. So we'll be signing up on the solution shortly. I have to sign up with my email address. And then you'd want to create the password. So once you've entered your email address and password, you can go ahead to sign up. So once you do that, you would get an email, right, with the registered email address. You'll get a confirmation link where you'd have to confirm your sign up. So I've got the email. Now I'm clicking to confirm. Once it's done, we can then sign in using our email address and password. All right, so now we are in, and the next thing we want to do is to fill in these details. So it says organization details, right? So the name of your organization. For this demonstration, I'll just be using this ABC, your phone number, and then your email address. All right, so once all of those are filled, you can go ahead to save. Now once it's saved, you'd see this dashboard that tells you no active subscription, no credits available, and no users provisioned, right? So what we want to do now is to subscribe to the free plan, right? We go to Smart Recon, and then we'll click New Reconciliation. Then it shows you that you don't have any subscription and you need to choose a plan, right? Then we'll choose the free plan, which is this. We submit. Yeah, once that is done, we can see on our dashboard that we have an active subscription, right? So we can go ahead. All right, so once you're logged into your account, you would see this dashboard that gives you like a summary of all the activity on your account, right? So as a free user, you have access to 10 credits, right? And it lasts for a duration of 1 month. So you have to, if you don't exhaust it before the 1 month elapse, you won't be able to use it for subsequent months, right? So let's just go ahead to do our reconciliation. Yeah, you would to reconcile your data, you click on the Smart Recon button. Then it takes you to this page where you'd have to upload your data. That's the data you want to reconcile, right? But before we upload the data, I would just like to show us how the data needs to be structured before you can upload, right? So this is the data we want to reconcile, right? As you can see on this worksheet, we have two sheets. We have our bank and we have our ledger, right? Another thing you would want to ensure that you do is that your data needs to be correctly formatted, right? If this column header is saying date, right? Everything that consists in this column should be a date. This is saying credit amount, debit amount. So everything that is in this column needs to be a number, right? It needs to be formatted correctly. That way, the platform would be able to recognize each of the column header, right, and give you a very good and useful result, right? So you ensure that your data are correctly formatted. So this is my ledger table, and we can see I have my data particulars, debit amounts, credit amount as well, right? They're all formatted. Okay. So we would go ahead to upload this on the Smart Recon website here. So it says drop your Excel or CSV file with 2 sheets, right? First row is title row. Yeah, so we'll click on this. and then select the sheets. So once that is done, it shows you the name of the file, right? And it shows that it's been loaded successfully. So the name of the file we uploaded is ICL Smart Recon Sample Workbook, which is the name of our file here, right? Now we'll go ahead to fill this field. For the first question, I have matching type. This matching type has two options. The first one says exact transaction reference or keywords, and the second option is inconsistent narrations. For my data, I would use inconsistent narration because my transaction on both table are not the exact transaction reference or the exact keyword, right? If your data is a case where your transaction on both tables, that your bank and ledger, or as the case may be, exact transaction reference, you can use that. Or in my case, I'll be using inconsistent narrations, right? Then we have this option here that says use date for matching. So if you want to use dates to match both data on your on your bank and your ledger, or if you want to use date as part of the factors or parameters to consider for the matching, you can leave it checked. But if you don't want to use dates, right, you can uncheck it. The next field we have is amount field mode. So the options we have here are single and double. Single in the sense that you have your bank table and you have your ledger table, right? So if it's a case where you want to only reconcile the debits in your bank statements, you want to reconcile it with the credits in your ledger, right? Just the debit in your bank and credits in your ledger. So that's like a single column for debits in your bank and a single column for credits on your ledger. If that's the reconciliation, like the type of reconciliation you want to do, then the option you'd select here is single, right? But if you are doing debit and credit reconciliation, like debit and credit in your bank statements, you're reconciling it with the debit and credit in your ledger. For that case, you'd have to select double. For my data, I'm reconciling both the debit and credit on my bank. I'm reconciling it with the debit and credit I have on my ledger. So I'll be selecting double for this. This next field that says description is optional, so you might as well leave it blank. Once all of these are filled, then you'd want to select generate form for both sheets. So once you do that, it gives you this format field for you to fill, right? So we going through them. So the first part of the fields here, we have our bank, right? And the lower part, we have our ledger. So let's start with the bank. We have our table 1 name, which is the bank, as you see it here, right? Then we have table range. The table range it captures here is from A1 to E43. So we'll go to our bank and we see this is A1, right? And this is E43. So, I mean, we've confirmed that all the data are completely captured, right? Then it says select transaction reference or narration column for semantic similarity. So it's basically asking that we select the column that has our narration. For my case, it is particulars, right? Just as we see it on the raw data here, right? This is particular. It's the column that has the transaction narration. Then the next field we have is credit amount field, right? I would select the credit amount, and debit amount field, select the debit amount. So it's basically this column headers we have here on our data, right? And the last one is a select date field for bank, right? Then we select the date field. Okay, now we move to table 2, which is our ledger, right? Table 2 name, ledger, exactly how we have it here. We have ledger, then the table range is from A1 to E46. So we'll just check to confirm that this is A1 and this is E46. So that's completely captured. The next field is to select our transaction reference, is particulars as well. For my ledger, you can see. And then we have credit amount field and debit amount field. Then we select the date as well. So once all of that is done, you select you click match record. So it takes just a few seconds and it downloads your result. All right, this is the result of our reconciliation. So it downloads in an Excel format. You can always open it in Excel. Yeah, this is a summary of our reconciliation, and they are categorizing all of these sections. So we'll be going through each of the categorization one after another, right? First on the category, we have one-on-one completely reconciled. And before we go into the category, right, this total here, it gives us the total transaction on each of our table, right? So we can see each table total result. For our bank, we have a total of 42 transactions. While for our ledger record, we have a total of 45 transactions. So for this total, the category here are the breakdown of each of them, right? Now let's start with this. This first category says one-on-one completely reconciled, meaning that one record or one transaction in our bank matches with one transaction in our ledger, right? Then to go to the breakdown of the list of transactions that make up this, you would click on this linked to sheet here, this column that says links to sheets. So you click on it, it takes you to the sheet that has the breakdown. Yeah, so this is it. On the right side of my screen, you can see this is a ledger table matched row, while on the left side is for our bank, right? And on this breakdown sheet, the solution works in such a way that it categorizes some, like a subcategory under each of the category, right? It categorizes transactions based on score, meaning that there are some transactions with very good score, right? Based on the transaction dates, the transaction narration, and the transaction amounts, right? So if all of those three components score a very good match, right? Those transactions with that component with good match would get a very good score, right? But the ones with lower match based on those three categories, right? Based on the dates, transaction description, and the amounts, if they don't have like a good matching score, I mean, it would put them below, right? And the ones we have at the upper part of the sheet here are the transactions with good score match, right? I mean, just as we see this here, this says low score matches, and it says scores that are between 30% and 50%. So to check the percentage, there's a column that says score, right? On this score column is where we'll see the percentage score for each and every of the transaction. So we see all the transactions we have here. We don't have any score that is lower than 50. They are all 50 and above, right? That means all of the transactions we have here are good score. For the low score matches, you'll see them below here. I mean, we'll see a couple of the low score match as we progress, right? So these are one-on-one completely reconciled transaction. We can just take a few of them to confirm, right? The first one says client code from Alex Smith. That's the transaction narration, and it is 5,000. The transaction date is this should be 12th of February 2025. The date here says 13th of February 2025. But from the narration, we see that there's a very good overlap, right? We have the Alex Smith to ABC Bank. We also have Alex Smith to ABC Bank here. And also for the transaction amount as well, right? We see a very good overlap, which is 5K, right? So that gives us the 94% score we have here. Another one is, I mean, everything here have a good score basically. So we can always just do a check through to ensure that, I mean, since it's one-on-one, completely reconciled without any deficit, then there's no need to worry. You can be 100% sure or confident that they are correct matches. So we'll just head on to the next category. Now to go back to the summary sheet, so for easy navigation, right, you can just click on the summary you have at the top of the sheet here. It takes you back to the summary sheet, right? And to go back to the breakdown, you click on it again. It takes you to the breakdown. So we'll just head back to the summary and go to the next category. The next category we have is one bank record to one ledger record with ledger records deficit. Okay, I'm going to be explaining that in the breakdown. So let's just head to the breakdown. We see we have just 3 transactions there, right? Now we are here. This is the breakdown. These are the 3 transactions, and I mean, one of the things you would observe is that they are all high score matches, right? See their scores 76, 85, 85. So what this one bank record to one ledger records with deficit means that although this transaction matches, right, either with the dates, the narration, and the amounts matches, but with a little deficits, right? And with my observation of this, it says one bank record. Remember, we have our bank on the left side of the screen, so all of these transactions are for our bank, right? Well, all of these are for our ledger, and it says one bank record to one ledger record with deficits. So on our bank, we have this first transaction, David Hansen, 45,027 naira, right? On our ledger, we have it as 45,000. The deficit we have is 27. Right, so you'd always see a column that speaks to the deficit amount, right? So for each of them, you can see the deficits we have. We have 27 here, 54, and 27 again. I mean, typically, you can see that all of these are bank charges, right? Bank charges that were not posted along with the transaction in the ledger, because this is our ledger record, and this is all of these transactions here are from our bank. So I hope that is clear enough. And for this category as well, we don't have any low score match, so they are all very high score matches. Then we'll head back to the summary and go to the next category, which is one ledger record to one bank record with bank record deficit. Right, we can see we have just one transaction here, so we'll head to the breakdown to see what transaction it is. Right, yeah, this is also a high score match, right? And it says one ledger record to one bank records with deficit. Remember, this is our ledger and this here is our bank, right? So this is the ledger record. Redemption from fund, we have 200,000, right? On our bank, we have, you see there's an overlap with the transaction narration, right? And there's an overlap with the dates as well. But the only difference is that there's a deficit between the amounts. On our ledger, we have 200,000, while on the bank, we have 199,800, right? And the deficit amount we have is just 200 naira. So, and we can see we don't have any low score match here as well, right? So that's that about this category. And then we head back to summary and move to the next category. So the next category says one bank record to many ledger records completely reconciled, right? We can see that for the bank records, we have four transactions. On the ledger records, we have 8. So we'll head to the breakdown. So these are all the transactions, right? And one thing to observe here is that they're all low score matches, right? But it's no problem. We'll just check through and see what's going on, right? So for all these transactions, it says one bank record to many ledger records. And again, these transactions here are our bank, and all of these are for our ledger. So I'll start with the first transaction. So this is one transaction in the bank, right? This transaction that says market redemption IFO Peter White 20,027, right? It's just one transaction in the bank. The reason it is appearing twice is because just as the category says, one bank record, right, is matching many ledger records and is completely reconciled. So this is the one bank record, and on the ledger, this the many ledger records, right? So this one transaction in our bank is matching to these two transactions in the ledger. So that's why the solution highlights this. Is showing as a duplicate, right? But it's not actually a duplicate. It's just matching on the same line with the transaction on the ledger, right? That it matches with. So we can see that the amount here is 20,027, right? And on the ledger, the first transaction here is 20,000, and the second one here is 27. So we have 20,027 in total, which is the two ledger records that matches with this one bank record. So the same thing applies to all these other transactions as well. All right, so that's it about this category. Then we move on to the next category that says one bank record to many ledger records with deficits, right? It's almost the same as this category before it, but the difference is that this one has deficits, right? So we can see on our bank, it's just one transaction, while on the ledger there are 3 transactions. So we head to the breakdown to see the transactions. Right, so this is one bank record to many ledger records. As we can see it here again, we see this transaction is 1, but it's appearing 3 times, right? That's because it's actually one transaction in our bank matches 3 transactions, like these 3 transactions in our ledger, right? So we'll just go through it. We can see there's some overlap with the narration, right? We have housing fund ABC Bank, and then we have funding ABC Bank here as well, right? And the transaction amount is 377,441,308, right? And the total amount for these 3 transactions we have here, the total amount is 250 million, right? Yeah, sorry, this is 377 million, rather, not thousand. So this 377 million, and the total here we have is 250 million. So the deficit, as we see it here, is this, right? So this is the deficit between these three transactions in the ledger and this one transaction in our bank statement. And I've earlier explained why this one transaction is showing multiple times in our bank, right? And that's because it says one bank record to many ledger records with deficits. So that explains this. We'll head back to summary and go to the next category. So the next category we have is one ledger record to many bank records completely reconciled, right? You can see the list of transactions here. We'll just head to the summary to check them. All right. Yeah, so all of these are high score matches, right? We can see their score, perfect score of 100 for all the transactions. And yeah, so it says one ledger record to many bank records completely reconciled, right? So this is just like the opposite of the one bank record to many ledger records that I've explained earlier, right? But this case is one record in the ledger that is matching multiple records in the bank. So on the right side is our ledger, right? And we have this 20K transaction. We can see that it's showing twice, right? And based on the category, it says one ledger records to many bank record. So these two transaction is actually one in our ledger, right? And it is matching with these two transactions we have in our bank, right? If we observe it carefully, we'll see there's an overlap with the date and the narration as well, right? So for the amounts, we have this 19,973 and 27. So the total of these two transactions in our bank gives us 20,000, right? Which is this one transaction we have in our ledger. So the same thing applies to this other transaction as well, right? If I convert this to number, it gives me 100K, and we see this single transaction in our ledger, right, is what matches with these two transactions in the bank. So that's it about this category, and we move on to the next one. So the next category says one ledger record to many bank records with deficits, right? We have two of the transaction in our bank and we have one in the ledger, right? So we'll go to the summary, the breakdown rather. Right. Yeah, so they are low score matches, right? And we have one ledger record, which is this, matching with these two transactions in our bank, but with a deficit. The amount we have here for these two transactions are 250,000, and the transaction we have here, the amount is 300,000. So the deficit of this and this, the transaction in the ledger and the two transactions in the bank, the deficit is this 50,000, right? So if we observe carefully, we'll see that there's an overlap with the date and the narration as well, right? We have Steve redemption and we have redemption from funds, Steve Jones as well. So that's it about this category. We'll head back to the summary and then move to the next category. So the next category we have here says unreconciled bank records. We have 7 of them, right? You can go to the breakdown sheet. So we have all these 7 transactions in our bank that do not have any match at all, right? There is no transaction in our ledger that is close to matching all the 7 transactions we have in our bank, right? Based on the date, based on the transaction narration, and based on the amount as well. There is nothing close. If there was any transaction close to this in our ledger, the solution would have matched it, but with a lower score, right? But we don't have any transaction that matches with any of these transactions in our ledger, right? So they remain unreconciled. So we'll head back to the summary and move to the next category. The next category we have is unreconciled ledger records, and yeah, we have 7 of them as well. The first one was our bank. Now this is our ledger. Yeah, on this ledger records for all of these transactions, there's no transaction that matches with any of these transactions in our bank record, right? I mean, if there was any transaction close, as I mentioned earlier, it would match it, but with a low score, right? But there is no transaction that is close to matching any of these transactions in our bank. So that's why they are categorized under unreconciled. But let's head back to the summary sheet. And the last 2 categories we have are invalid bank records and invalid ledger records, right? For the bank, let's check. We have just 3. So the reason why these 3 records or transactions are invalid. So firstly, we'll notice that there is a value on both the credit and debit side, right? And I mean, that's why you need to ensure that your data is properly checked and formatted, right? It should be in its correct state or correct form, because I mean, really, you cannot have both debit and credit right on the same line. It has to be either debit or credit, right? So that's why the solution has flagged it as an invalid transaction. Then the second one, we have the date, we have narration, but we don't have any amount on the credit and debit. And lastly, we have date, we have narration, but see, instead of a number, we have a text that says text, right? So that's the reason it flags these 3 transactions as invalid. And the last one is invalid records in ledger. We see the same case just as the one we had in the bank. We have the date narration, but our debit amount for this, we have both debit and credit value on the same line, which is completely wrong. And here, no amount, and here we have text, right? So this brings us to the end of this video, and I hope everything explained are clear enough. And if you have further questions or clarification, you can always communicate via the WhatsApp platform, and would always respond and give answers to your questions. Thank you very much.